Authur is a kids' TV show that had been around since the late 90s. It is still on to this day. It is the weirdest reality-based shows that sets example for kids. I grew up with it, and I still watched it on weekday mornings when I don't have school. This story, though, will explain what has soured me to buy other old episode tapes. I had written this description of the episode a few years back and left it on my computer. After much thought, I decided to release it. May 10th, 2009. I watched this tape and survived long enough for me to get a few screenshots from him. But at last, the film was torn badly, and during repairs, I lost all but 5 minutes of the episode. The tape was bought second-handed about a month ago from my normal second-handed media store, the Corner Store. For those who never live in central Alberta, it is an old music store that became the second-hand book movie store some time ago. I have bought almost 100 VHS tapes on them, all which worked fine except for this one. I bought the tape because I tried to find the old episodes of Authur again to bring back good memories from my childhood. I love that show, and I still watch it to this day. As all you should know, they still make it, and the new ones are nothing to brag about. The animation looks cheap and rather rushed. The stories are often dull and focus on the main illness in children, like the one with the kid with Asper feels out of place. The characters had changed. The bullies were now good guys. Francine is even more of a bitch, and Francine was even more of a bitch, and DW had no longer has moments that has ever seen more than a spoiled brat. The show has been ruined. To escape this mess, I went to buy some old episodes on tape. Home recording were particular interest, so I could see some of the old commercials that aired at that time. I bought almost $5 worth of old tapes, each at 50 cents. They all seemed fine. Each was properly labeled with episode names, recording dates, and timestamps. The one that caught my eye was titled Death of Grandma, recorded March 5th, 1998, which was a loan stamp 1524 lost the channel. It was an episode I did not know. From an air date, that seems too old and to be trusted. I noticed the title had been written out of a patch of whiteout, and I decided against scrapping it off. Perhaps it was a recording of something in the people's lives. I decided to watch it first. It beginning with the open Authur. The theme sounded a bit tiny, perhaps due to the bad recording equipment. The tapes have an issue that troubled me, mainly the tracking. I could just get to stop being jumpy, and it's awkward to watch. I eventually gave up and leaving it where it is the line and fuzz across the top. Stats down. There was no opening title for the episode. It showed to the Elmwood City Hospital, something I wasn't very familiar with. The sad music played. The only car in the pocket was the Reeds. It cut to Authur and DW in the waiting room. Authur was reading a Scare Your Pants Off book, while DW pestered him about a story. The volume was bad, making me hard to listen to. I do my best to recreate what they're saying, though it's hard to remember. DW: why won't you play with me, Arthur? I'm bored. Why are we even here? Arthur: shut up, DW. I'm trying to read. The parents came to the hall. The mom was crying and the dad looked shocked. DW ran to them, asking why Arthur was ignoring her. The dad told her to sit down. Arthur's dad: no kids. I'm afraid that we will be seeing Grandma Thora again. She's gone to a better place. He broke into tears. As always, the voice acting was pretty good. Arthur dropped his book in shock and stared. They sat there unmoving, the tape rippling with static, and the parents crying looped over and over. It cut to them at home. The mom was talking on the phone, looked sad but acting professional. DW was staring at the TV, but it was a black screen. Kate was just sitting there, unmoving, and the dad was making a wedding cake, his face grim. The doorbell rang, and Arthur opens the door. It was Buster. Hey, I heard what happened. Do you want to go to the Sugar Bowl and talk? Sure. The shock to the Sugar Bowl. It appeared, but there was no music. Only wind blowing. I noticed that it was fall in the episode. Dead leaves laid the litter in the ground. Arthur and Buster were sitting there, not talking, not moving. It reminded me of the still frames that sometimes appear in the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show. Buster spoke, but without moving with the words at all. Maybe we should do something fun to cheer ourselves up. Arthur just stares at him, eyes blank. It cuts suddenly to the funeral. Everything was in black. There was no music, only crying. The casket was pure white, draped in flowers. It showed Arthur, his face wet in tears, before the imagination sound cued come in. The casket opened. But it wasn't Grandma Thora, but it was his mom. Her face was heavily wrinkled, like in the episode where DW get lost in the mall. It was talking about what life would be like without her. Her teeth were showing, and the color was off, it being more of a yellow than normal white. Her eyes were suddenly open, but they're not human, but rather black button eyes, like on Arthur's stuffed bear Stanley. He screamed and everyone vanished, leaving him alone in the church. The walls fell in, exposing a red-black streaked sky. DW's laughter could be heard, high and rapid. There was sound of bangs and the images stopped. Arthur was sitting there with his face paled. His mom was whispering something to his dad. DW was crying. They were walking in a single file line to the coffin. As Arthur got closer, you could hear buzzing of files. Then they walked. Then he swallowed and wiped his eyes. The coffin lid was open. He looked in and there was a shot of his face. He was in rage. The flash was of white and sounded was gone for a moment. Suddenly they were at the car again. The episode ended. As the credit commercials, they weren't anything amazing. Just ads for Chick-fil-A and KSP. The next part we did had the title, Recovery. It was written in plain white background. I could hear DW screaming like when Arthur punched her before the episode started up. The family was at home. It seemed continuation of the previous part. DW was in her room, solemnly playing with her dolls. The parents were ransamming over pictures. and Authur was in his room when Pal came in and started barking at him. He wanted to play. Authur got out and kicked the dog. He kept kicking them. The soundtrack is now consists of Pal's yelps. Before slamming his door shut, Kate started crying. Authur gritted his teeth, and the scene faded out. The next scene showed that it was nighttime, and Authur crept out of his room with his backpack on his shoulder. He walked past Pal, who was whining, and drew away. Before grabbing his coat and sneaking out, he ran for a full 3 minutes, the streets all in the shadow. The music was very soft, normal happy music that we knew from the show. The end, though, when he ran to the graveyard, he stopped at his grandma's grave, stared at it. There was an owl hooting sound as he started to dig, crying out his pain as he did. His bare hands were soon slicked into dark red blood. And he stopped, finding the coffin. He was crying now. The coffin opened and Authur was inside it. His eyes were closed and his glasses were shattered. His family gathered around, staring down and crying. Kate screamed for whatever reason. D.W. threw Pal into the open grave. Although his body was unmoving, there was a still of him running. The screen went black, and there were a low sound of high chatter. It was the Tibbies laughing. The grave started to spin in empty space, opening and sucking through. I could hear D.W. yelling, "Kate did it!" over and over again, mixed with Pal's cry of pain. Stanley appealed, spiring down through his blackness. His head tore off, and cartoony organs of the episode where Authur cut his knee and started trailing out from his body. There was a series of loud thuds that showed Authur again, sitting there in the sugar bowl. Buster was unmoving on the floor beside his booth. His eyes were gone. Then red sockets started to stream blood, and Authur screamed in rage. There's a few flashes that showed in the prison, wearing black and white clothing in the show they always use, and his face is scarred. They showed the bad guy sometimes. His last words were louder than the other speech clips. "I killed them all, Authur. I killed them all. I beat out Kate's brains. I stabbed D.W. I killed my dog. My parents ate poison, but I didn't do it. She did it. Dora did. She made me kill them." And it went to the credits, and it was normal, cheering music. Stunned, I rewound the tape to see what I saw was real, or is it just a dream. When I tried to rewind the video, the tape sized up, so I took the tape and opened it up. The film has split from an inch and from real all the way down to a few inches of the other one. Either way, I witnessed one of the worst things I have ever seen in an actual children's cartoons. Or I'm off nuts. I will never know. I never knew that an episode of a children's show I remember it pretty well though. It suggested it is real. If this was make some kind of a sick fuck of a show, of a joke, I give them all a thumbs up for making something that is real, like it as if actually part of the series. After all, the video I never cut out as like said it on the tape, unless it has something to it. Since the show always covered with the real topics, could this be a real episode and the only aired once? They did the one of DW's bird dying, but never one on abuse or anything. If it really like a real episode, as I hope it is, I really want to see it again to prove myself I'm not going mad.